It's been a while since I uploaded my last video. I was planning on uploading sooner, but I had so many delays, even lost an edited file, and to be honest, I was being quite lazy. By the time this video comes out though, it will probably already be either late December or January, so I wish you all a Merry Christmas. Thank you for your support and for watching my content. It's been a very long year, with many ups and downs. I've tried my hand at many things, and this whole channel was a little experiment. So, seeing the results, I want to make some important changes. Going forward, I want to make this channel a cleaner place, with more clear-cut content. I want to be more open to you, the viewer. I'm going to be more open about things I like, talking about different characters, stories, games, and covering the subjects that genuinely interest me. This won't be mainly a Project Moon focused channel anymore, though I will continue making videos about Project Moon games, and I will make a channel update video soon. So to close off the year, I want to take a look back. And this story begins in 2023, June of 2023. I had a tiny old laptop, a gift from my father, that could barely run anything. I didn't really play games at the time, but other than card games either way. I remember my friend talking about Limbus Company with great passion, and seeing that my rusty computer met the minimum requirements, I decided to give it a try. Dark fantasy and science fiction are very much up my alley, and so I was hooked instantly. Seeing a cast of weirdos called sinners, people inspired by different books and literary references, was nothing new to me, but it was done well. Many Japanese and Asian manga and light novel authors use this trope, but they often miss the mark. Limbus Company is not entirely sinless in this regard, and the two first Cantos are generally considered weaker than the rest, but still I want to take my time and argue that the first two chapters of Limbus Company are still great. Not only that, I want to take a look at these characters and stories through the lens of someone who has actually read the literature referenced by the game. For this reason, I want to talk about more characters from Limbus Company. Previously, I spoke about Sinclair. Now, focusing on the early Cantos, I decided to return to the very beginning, Gregor and Rhodia. Their Cantos were released in the early days of the game, when Limbus Company itself wasn't as refined as it is now. These stories felt somewhat rushed and glossed over, possibly due to the limited funding or the complexity of the overarching plot. At first I thought it would be manageable to discuss both Cantos in one video, but later I decided against it. Instead, I want to focus on why Gregor is arguably one of the best written characters in video games. Limbus Company introduces the 13th sinner first to us. Gregor got his Canto as our introduction to the game's story, and to the Smoke War. The first Canto of Limbus Company focuses on Gregor, one of the more reasonable and level-headed employees of the company. One thing we notice about him right away is his mutated bug arm, jarringly contrasting his cool personality. Sometime in the past, his whole hand has transformed into something akin to an insect limb. Gregor is quite conscious of this change and is visibly uncomfortable because of it. Before I discuss the game character further, I want to bring up the source material Gregor is based on. Gregor comes from a short book called The Metamorphosis by Kafka. Not that Kafka, Franz Kafka. In the book, Gregor is a regular man, a reliable employee and a family person. The book starts with Gregor Zamza suddenly waking up and realizing that he has become a bug. a living giant roach. Though it is very important to understand that neither the book or the game character have anything to do with the biology of insects. The original German line reads: Als ich aus den ruhigen Träumen erwachte, hatte ich mich in ein ungeheures Ungeziefer verwandelt. Translated as I awoke from unsettling dreams, I had transformed into some hideous pest. The word used in the original book in German is Ungeziefer, which has nothing to do with insects. The word may refer to vermin and despised pests like spiders, yet if we look at the etymology of the word, its original meaning was animals unsuitable for sacrifice. In heathen practices, live animals were sacrificed to deities for boons and to appease them. The first act of worship and sacrifice in the Bible is the story of Cain and Abel from Genesis. Each brother sacrificing to God, and yet only one receiving the blessing. One of them gave sacrifice from his crops, and the other gave best of his firstborn lambs to God. And for this the Lord looked with favor on his sacrifice. In the Old Testament we see at numerous places that God demands a perfect sacrifice. So when Franz Kafka writes that Gregor had awoke and transformed into an animal unsuitable for sacrifice, it surely means that Gregor had become totally useless as a human being. Not his life and not his death had any more meaning left. This simply is a story about the man who is no longer useful to society and is viewed as nothing but a problem, a pest. Something ugly, worthless, and to be despised for no other reason than existing. Maybe the author takes issue with the society for being cruel and unjust. Maybe he strikes at deeper philosophical problem and argues for the lack of meaning in life. Whatever the intention behind this transformation of Gregor may be, it is all the same horrifying and sad. This feeling is especially amplified by Gregor Samsa's personality, who is so very impartial to his own suffering. Seeing how good of a person and how much of a model citizen Gregor used to be makes the reality even more bleak. In the book, Gregor used to be a soldier. His picture in uniform hangs in the background of his house. Gregor had single-handedly provided for his own family, his parents and his sister. He had been a diligent worker, never once being late or absent at work. And the world is totally uncaring to this seemingly great person. Instead of getting a deserved break, he only suffers and ultimately breaks apart. Just like in the book, the 13th sinner is also an ex-soldier, but in the game this role is amplified. He took part in the Smoke War and was instrumental in war propaganda for his wing. There are posters and images of young Gregor all over the old G-Corp, showing the triumphant soldier who proudly displays his mutated arm raised in a military salute. Gregor was one of the first soldiers to undergo the biological mutation, forced into this role by his mother. He was used by the old G-Corp to convince volunteers to take the same procedure, but the mutation process was much more crude for others than for Gregor. Despite all the horrible sacrifices, old G-Corp was undone by the end of the war. The Smoke War veterans were left uncared for and forgotten by the city. It was exceptionally hard for the old G-Corp soldiers, who were now practically mutants and more bugs than human. Gregor was no exception. He had a hard time controlling his mutated arm and suffered mental problems from the trauma he received. Once an important figure in his wing, now had become someone despised and ostracized. Yet he quietly endured it all. Mirroring the book character, the sinner managed to keep a good heart and not let the cruel reality define him. The stoic resolve and altruistic outlook on life really make Gregor a memorable sinner, one who is always there for manager Dante and others. But is that enough? Delving into Gregor's phantoms, we see the smoke war and the crushing grip of his tyrannical parent, one that refuses to let go. Hermann, named after Franz Kafka's own father, is the former head scientist of Old G Corp and the current director of N Corp. Gregor's mother escaped accountability for the horrific human experiments she conducted. Gregor was one such experiment. We got a glimpse into that past. Dreamlike quality of those memories could be symbolic, or it could be just the nightmarish truth of what Gregor saw. He was part of some form of psychological torture, being subjected to psychological conditioning, forced to reach out and grab apples with his mutated arm. When he finally grabbed the apple, it was revealed that he had pierced someone's heart. Gregor was turned into a killing monster, his arm seemingly possessing a will of its own. The symbolism of apples and murder is significant. In the Metamorphosis, Gregor's father throws apples at him, one lodging in his body and never healing until his death. This may be a stretch, but an apple is often associated with the fruit of knowledge from Garden of Eden. By consuming this fruit, man became mortal. Sacrifice, death, and guilt all stem from this moment. Gregor seizing the apple while taking lives can be read as an allegory for his moral fall. Even the number 13, often associated with death and misfortune, reinforces this symbolism. Perhaps Gregor knows deep down that he will never escape Hermann or his past, and yet he persists. In Canto 1, Gregor tries to take control. We meet the young fixer named Yuri, who is our guide to Old Lobotomy Corporation facility. She is quite helpful, and our group takes a liking to her, especially Gregor, who tries to help her at different times during the story, even saving her life by giving her a gas mask at one point in the story. Even after a glimpse at his phantoms, we see that Gregor has not grown bitter or crestfallen. Despite all of the losses, despite all the suffering caused by the smoke war, and despite the miserable existence after the war, Gregor managed to persevere. We see that he is eager to help others like Yuri and tries to make a difference where it matters. Unfortunately for the 13th sinner, Pest refuses to leave him alone. Throughout the dungeon inside the Lobotomy Corporation, we have to face off against apples thrown at Gregor. Of course, it is just a coincidence, but a symbolic one that abnormalities we fight here take the form of apples. First, we face off against Ebony Queen's apple and manage to subdue it. Later, we see the golden apple abnormality. After sinners managed to bring it down and thought that it had been defeated, Yuri tried to be helpful and retrieve the golden bow from the abnormality. At that very moment, the golden apple transformed into a false apple and took Yuri's life. The body of Yuri was used by it to plead to sinners for its life, and Gregor, who stood closest to her, was unable to strike Yuri down. In this very bleak moment, Hermann and her group showed up. Hermann cut Yuri's head off and left with the golden bow, leaving the Limbus Company and Gregor with nothing but total failure. Limbus Company leaves Canto 1 exactly as it entered it, empty-handed. In this moment, Gregor has a very understandable breakdown, and it is this moment that makes him a great character. He is very altruistic in his nature. What shook him to the core was not the horrors from the past necessarily, but being unable to save this one girl that he cared for. When the first canto ends, we do not see a crestfallen, broken man. No, he's going through a tough time, that's true, but despite his canto being over, his story is still going on. We are sure to see Hermann and Gregor clash at some point in the future. And Gregor has not given up, and this reliable employee who is always calling us buddy or friend and is always there to give us a pretty decent advice, who enjoys everyday casual things, who probably more than any other employee other than Ryoshu likes to have a smoke break, is this very brilliant man, a truly person with a golden heart. So I rest my case. Gregor is probably one of the best written characters. So when I thought of writing this script, I did not think I would find so many interesting things about Canto 1. I severely underestimated the quality of the early game storyline and the depths of characters. Soon it will be 3 years since Limbus Company has released. To see how much the quality has improved, and despite that, how good the writing was even 3 years ago, that's a pleasant surprise. I thought to have some sort of an ending statement here, and I wish to express my feelings at the closure of this year. So to close out the year, I will say this. Some of you may have achieved great things this year. Maybe you bought your dream car, got married, landed a great job, or traveled somewhere really special, or maybe you didn't. Maybe this year felt no different from the last, and if that's the case, think of Gregor. Making it into the next year is an accomplishment in itself. If you failed this time, surely you can try again, and again. Gregor is a great character, because he keeps going, despite knowing that probably he will never succeed. And so should you. You should keep going, even when it's pointless. Merry Christmas to you, my viewers, and see you probably next year.